Hi guys, Jordan from B&P Campers. I'm just going to do your handover video on your new venture, New Surf. So we're starting with the bonnet. On the left hand side here you got your engine coolant overflow reservoir. So see there, level there just below the maximum line, and the engine's cold at the moment, so that's how you want to test that. So that's how it's perfect sort of level. Washer fluid, see again, top right up to the very top with the proper fluid. Power steering fluid goes in this reservoir just here at the top. And you can see there inside there is actually a max level and it's just about touching it, so that's spot on. Kind of proves that there's no sort of leaks or anything funny going on there. Engine oil goes in through this cap just at the top of the engine. And you can see nice clear colour on there. Pop that back away. I'll do it properly. Alright, I'll do that in a minute. Anyway, engine oil dipstick is this one with the yellow top, orange top just here at the front. And again, the engine oil has been done. It is a diesel vehicle, which is the reason why it's not sort of stayed a nice kind of clear colour. Diesel vehicles do just go black pretty much straight away. Your brake fluid attached to the servo is this bit just up here at the top. And again, level right up to the very top. You have got a min and max line here, so keep your eye on that as and when you need to. Negative terminal for your battery and positive bits and pieces up there. So if you needed to jump start the vehicle, you can do that from there. Need two hands to do things like that, really. Right, your fuses and things like that are under this box just over here. This is all kind of Citroen stuff, so you don't need to worry about that too much. Obviously, you know, like I said, we've had the whole service done on it. Anything that needed doing would have been done. But yeah, so other than that, it's all pretty straightforward under the bonnet. Let me just try and cap on. Right, oil cap is back on properly. And I will do this one in a minute because I'm going to need two hands for that. Alright, there you go, that's back on. Right, just wanted to show you that they went back on. It was just me being stupid. Right, your bonnet release on this particular vehicle is this one just down here in the passenger footwell. All of your vents and things like that turn and close over like that nice and easily, and your mirrors are manual adjusting via these little prongs that stick out there. Next, on the near side, you've got your external boiler vent. So if you had your boiler lit up on gas, you'd be able to feel hot air coming out from either side here at the top. Diesel filler point. Please don't mistake this. I mean, obviously this has got a great big sign above it, but please don't mistake this for the water. If you get water in your diesel tank, you're going to run into some serious issues, and the same vice versa, other way around. If you get diesel in your water tank, same thing. It's usually a new tank job, which is not an easy job. So please try and, I've seen it happen a few times, so please try not to do that. Your step switch is this one just here. So I'll just show you that going in and out like that, spot on. I'll just shut the door up for a second, it's quite windy. So you've got space inside this gas locker for two of these 6 kilo propane bottles if you should need it. Obviously quite a lot of people would take one at the back there as a spare, but it's totally up to you how you do it. So at the minute, like I say, you've got the one 6 kilo propane bottle. Turning the bottles on anti-clockwise, so drawing it upwards is turning it on, and clockwise round to the right, turning it down is turning it off. Up here on the actual regulator, you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. This is all just for our testing, so that's like a little testing point for us to make sure there's no gas leaks or anything like that, which there isn't. And by the looks of it, yeah, there you go, 2022 brand new pigtail hose. So you've got till 27 to replace this. Underneath the locker, you've got your freshwater drain. So literally just by turning this, fresh water drains out from the fresh tank. Back of the vehicle, you've got your freshwater inlet point. So that comes out nice and easily like that. To lock it up, push in and round to the right until it stops. And then you get your circular key out. So this key here, pop the key in, turn it the only way it'll go, 90 degrees until it stops. Take the key out, and then you will not be able to take that out. The next two here, you've got your top fridge vent there and the bottom fridge vent there. So the actual burner for the fridge sits down here on the bottom right hand side, and if you do have it lit up on gas, you'll be able to feel warm air coming out through the top just here, because as you can see there's like a little exhaust top there. So basically the burner goes down here, comes up here, out of the exhaust up here on the top right. Toilet cassette locker and flush fluid locker. I'll just show you what that looks like. So once you've opened it up, circular key again by the way, there's not really a huge amount to see. All there is really, the little sort of wires that you can see in there, is there's a little tiny pump that sits inside of that. So when you press the button inside the sort of toilet, you can basically just hear the pump going, and that's that pump inside there. So this is your pink fluid, your flush fluid that you want to put in there. Dirty hands. And fill up kind of like 2-3 litres at a time. So if you run out, pour about 2 or 3 litres of pre-mixed stuff in there, and you'll be good to go again. Taking the actual toilet cassette out, lift up on the little yellow bit at the bottom, and then pull the actual cassette out towards you. This top lip has been lubricated, so it slides in and out nice and easily. If they're not lubricated, they will just stick and cause you some problems. Draining the actual cassette out, you drain it from here, and when you are actually draining it out, you need to hold down on a little yellow button at the back there, and that'll make sure it comes out nice and easily. Wastewater drain is this one just here at the bottom. Obviously it tells you just there. I've got it in the open position at the moment, so anything that we put down the sink will come straight out from there. And the last couple of bits, your hookup point is this one just here. It's actually 240 volts, so that'll give you access to using if your boiler's got 240 volt sort of functionality on it, and also if your 240 volt sockets, so your 3-pin sockets inside the van, come to life after that, as well as your charger and things like that. But I'll go into a bit more detail of that inside. You then also got your heating vent just here on the outside as well. So if you get your heating on gas, you'll be able to feel hot air coming out from the underneath of that. Right. So in the cab, there's not a huge amount to show you because it's all nice and standard, and you know, it's a pretty decent spec cab to be fair, but it's all sort of the standard stuff. There's nothing sort of technical that I've got to run through with you. Lights and indicators are on this left hand stalk here. Sometimes, oh no, the horn's on the steering wheel on this one. I was going to say sometimes they're on the end of this stalk here, but they're not on this one. Washers and wipers on the right hand stalk here. Obviously you've got your factory fitted Citroen head unit up here. You've got a little bit of storage up here if you didn't know. It's quite a nice little area to pop things. Heater controls, they're all there. Manual 5-speed gearbox where reverse is over and down to the bottom right. Your windows go up and down from these switches just here rather than bits on the doors. Hazard lights from there in the middle, and you can lock and unlock the cab from inside. Other than that, I think that's it really for the outside and the cab. So I'll show you around the sort of the motorhome side of things now. So I'll leave that bonnet open, it's not raining anymore. So the first thing you want to do obviously is switch your gas on. If you want to use anything via the gas obviously needs to be switched on. So once you've done that, you can then come inside and go through and do the bits and pieces that I'm going to show you now. So it's all pretty straightforward in here. Like I said, it's a really, really lovely van. They don't normally have this high spec, you know, all of the shower and the toilet and things like that as well. But anyway, right, I'll go through to that. So you've got a main on and off switch up here in the top right hand side. So I'll switch that on. I want to sort of show you it all working so you can see exactly what happens. So the first thing that I would do personally, I would switch it on and I'd check my levels. So over here on the left hand side, you've got this middle button, push that in, battery is sat up there on 14.2 volts, 14.4. So I believe, is this the one? Yeah. So this is the one that we fitted the solar panel to just the other day. So you can see there the wire coming down from on the roof, down the back of the cupboard, right the way down there. I tried to make it as neat as I possibly could. It then runs down this little bit of trunking and then into your locker, which is where all of your battery and things like that are. So let me just, should definitely be more prepared for this. Right, let me just take these bits off. And so I can show you it properly. Okay, so the reason that the battery level is sitting so high up there on 14.5 is, like I said, because we've got the solar panel that we fitted the other day. So your little solar controller is this part just down here. All right, leisure battery sits underneath this little white box, and essentially what happens is the wire comes down there through that trunking over in the corner, runs all the way down to here. The two wires from the solar panel run into the actual controller there, and then two wires come off of the controller straight to the leisure battery there. All right, so anytime that there's sun on the van, you're going to have power running into your leisure battery, which obviously is fantastic, because then you can sort of not worry about it whatsoever and just sort of use it for as long as you like. The other bits that are important here is your fuse box, is this one just here on the right. Trip switches just there for your mains, and your battery charger for mains there on the left hand side. You've also got your water pump that sits just there in the middle, and your space heater is that over there. So let me pop that away now. I'm obviously going to go through and show you everything else as well, but I just thought I'd run you through that just to show you how we sort of routed it. Like I said to you, tried to make it as neat as we possibly could. Obviously we had to use a little bit of trunking there, otherwise you just have exposed wire and it would look like this all the way down. But yeah, so I think we did a pretty nice job of it. It's a really good sized panel as well, by the way. For a van that's only got the one leisure battery down there, which, you know, most of them only have one, but the panel up there is you know, a good enough size for probably one that had two bigger batteries. So that's the reason why I sat such a nice high voltage. So there you go, that's that. So you press the middle button just there to show your voltages. First click will show you your leisure battery voltage, which is the little caravan symbol, and then the next one there, you see it changed over, that's your engine battery level, 12.2. So 12.2, just so you know, 12.4 there, look, is a perfectly good resting battery rate. 14.5, to be honest, is like the sort of the battery level you'd have in if you had your hookup plugged into the van. So, you know, really good battery voltages. The one below that tells you your fresh water level. So press that on, 20 litres in your fresh tank. And the one at the top tells you your temperature, but it's kind of, they're not very accurate, to be completely honest with you. I tend not to worry with those. This little button just here, if you've got an awning light, I'm not sure if you will or not. No. So forget that. That's if you've got an awning light. This one doesn't, so forget that one. And then you've got this little button just here. So now that you've pressed that, all the lights around the van should spring to life. Let me just turn all these on because they're quite nice little ones to have on. So obviously there are a few more dotted around. That's what, you know, one underneath each of those little cupboards there, and there will obviously also be one in the bathroom, all working as you'd expect. Right, so light switch is on, and then you've got your water pump switch. All right, so you might have heard it just then. So we've seen already the pump sits down there. The first thing you want to do when you come into the van, if you want to heat your water up and, you know, use it properly, gas needs to be switched on. But really the most important part, if you forget to turn your gas on and something won't light up, you're not going to cause any damage. But if you don't do what I'm going to show you now, you may well run into problems where, you know, you start damaging things. So I'll show you more under there in a minute. But pump switch goes on, And then you want to come to your tap just here and basically just pull the water through, start on the cold side, make sure that the water comes through nice and clearly like that. Once you're happy with it coming through nice and clearly, then turn it over to the left for your hot. All right, so now the water that's coming through here now, if it's going through on that hot side there, the water that's coming through here is running through the boiler and then up to your taps. All right, so if I turn that off, pump will turn off, which means it's up to pressure. The reason that's so important to run it through the hot side for a minute and then turn it off is that if the water doesn't come through when you turn it to the hot side and you start getting like coughing and spluttering, that means that your boiler is not full of water and you can't use it yet. Okay, so if the water comes through nice and easily like that, it means that your boiler is full and you can just not worry about that at all. Go ahead, light it up, do whatever you want. But until you have done that, it's so important. It'll be one of two things. If you turn it to the hot side and nothing comes through and you just get sort of coughing and gargling, it can be one of two things. Either the boiler is completely empty, or you've got air in the system. Or also, I suppose, if you've not got any water in the tank, it also won't work. But if it's only not working on the hot side, it'll be either air in the system, which is quite easily fixed, or your boiler drain is open and the water's just pumping straight out of the boiler drain. All right, I will push the water through a little bit. We've got a little sort of plunger type thing that will sort that slow draining out. Right, so that's why, you know, that is so important to do that first and make sure that your hot water side is coming through nice and easily is so important. But like I say, if you literally come into the van without checking the boiler, you know, for the water and light it up, and when, you know, when there's no water in it, basically what you're doing is exactly the same as like boiling an empty kettle. So what will happen is the boiler will just get way too hot, and, you know, wires and pipes and things like that will start to kind of melt. And, you know, it's if I'm honest with you, the boiler is the most expensive part on this van, and the same on pretty much every motorhome. The boiler is the most expensive and the bit that you want to look after the most, to be fair. So if you just do the couple of bits that I'm going to show you, you'll be absolutely fine. So under this settee here, we've got the actual boiler itself. So it's only a little thing, it's nothing, you know, too exciting, but it's so important to look after it. The little yellow tab in the corner there, so that's a manual dropout valve basically for your boiler. So if you wanted to drain the boiler out from its water, which you would only really do in reasonably extreme circumstances, so if the weather was going to get kind of, I don't know, 2-3 degrees, that kind of, whatever temperature inside the vehicle where you think the water might freeze basically, if you're not going to be in the van and using it, you need to drop that water out from the boiler. If you leave the boiler full of water, so it's about 10 litres, the actual space inside the boiler, if you leave the water inside the boiler and it freezes, basically all of these pipes that you see around here, and obviously inside the boiler as well, when the water freezes, it'll expand, and all of these little cracks and, you know, bits and joints and stuff like that will start to crack and leak. Not only that, but if you know, that would be the best case scenario, the pipes cracking, but if you leave it and it all freezes up, then quite often what will happen is bits inside the boiler will start to go wrong too. So please just, you know, you don't have to worry about this at all most of the time, but if it's going to get to sort of like freezing temperatures and you're not going to be using the van and keeping it warm inside, you need to drain that boiler out just by lifting that little tab up. All right, so the position that it's in now, so it's horizontal now, if you lift that up so it's vertical, all the water will just drain straight out of it. All right, but as we speak, everything's perfectly fine with it. So if you just look after it by doing what I just said there, not lighting it up when it's empty and draining it out when you need to, when it's going to get really, really cold, then you're going to be absolutely fine with it. Okay, so that's your sink, that's your water system really. Making sure that your boiler's full first, so important. Once you've done that and you've got your gas on, you can come over here. Let me just get rid of this for a second. you can come over here and they're quite nicely laid out. Let me just put that back there. So you've got Ultra Store here. So Ultra Store is the name of the boiler. So Ultra Store is your hot water, all right? It's not your heating, it's your hot water only. So if you know that your boiler is full by pulling the hot water through over there and it coming through nice and easily, you can then come over to this switch over here and turn it on. As long as you've taken your little cover off out there, which I did on the video, you can then come in here, switch it on just by turning the outside ring, boiler lit straight up just there, and then you've got 30 all the way through to 70, and that's basically just the degrees of the water inside. All right, so for example, I'll just do that now, and then hopefully by the end of the video we'll already have a little bit of warm water coming out the tap. But I'll just you know, don't hold me to that, because it can take sort of 20-30 minutes to actually get hot, but we'll just see how it goes. The reason I said they've laid it out quite nicely is because the boiler sits under here, like I've just shown you. The boiler working on gas is that dial up there, and if you had a hookup cable plugged into the vehicle, you can also run the boiler via the electric element. So basically, if you plug a hookup cable into the van and you don't have any gas, or you don't want to use it on gas, quite literally all you have to do is push that button on there. You can probably see on the video there's a little line on the button, and basically that will light up red if you turn it on and the mains is plugged in. So it's not working now because there's no hookup plugged into the vehicle, and that's why it's not glowing up. I'll switch that off again for now. It's really important as well, I'll just run you through this. It's really important to leave that switch off. Quite often what people do by accident is leave that switch on because they think, all right, if I plug a hookup into the van, I'm going to want hot water. If you forget that you've got that switched on, you plug a hookup into the vehicle like you normally would, just to, you know, do whatever. If you forget that that's on and you've emptied your boiler out or something like that, you're going to run into exactly the same problem. If you try and heat the boiler up with no water in it, either via the gas or the electric, you're still boiling an empty kettle, essentially. So you'll still run into the same issues where everything gets too hot and it will start to melt stuff. All right. So it's really simple, to be fair. Just make sure that you turn it off after you've used it. It's just so important. I've seen it so many times where people just leave them on, and it's like the worst thing you can do. So make sure that you do that. I was going to say to you, make sure that you keep one of these vents open, but this one hasn't got the slider on it on purpose, by the way. Quite a lot of these smaller vans don't have the flaps on them at all, because if you've only got one or two of these little holes here, if you've got them both closed over, the boiler won't work properly. The heating, sorry, won't work properly. So they've just taken the actual flap, the slider bit off that one, so you can't do that. Okay, heating. The heating works on gas only. There's no hookup way of using the heating. If you can see there, the two going up are just fans. So if I go up 1 or 2, air is pumping around through here now, but it's basically just cool air. Whatever air is outside, it's just blowing air, all right? It's not doing any heating at all if you go up. If I go down, so back to the middle, so that's off. If I go down 1 or 2, I'll get small flame or big flame, all right? You can then adjust how powerful you want it to work, and that's it. So that'll just light up and you just get heating coming through. Sometimes these systems can make a bit of a noise. They do go away after a little while, and basically it's just a lack of use kind of thing. So the more you use it, the less, you know, the quieter it'll be. That's just it lighting up there. But there you go. So small flame and off. All right. So the heating can't really get much easier than that, to be fair to you. Down 1 is small flame, down 2 is big flame, up 1 or 2 is just the fan. Okay, if you find that you go down 1 or 2 for the heating and nothing happens at all, try turning the dial on the inside up to 9 and just see if it lights up then, because obviously it's got a thermostat inside the vehicle. It's probably this one above the it's probably this one here. And essentially, if it's a little bit too warm inside the vehicle, then basically it just won't light up. It just won't allow you to do it. So if you try and turn it up all the way, you should be okay. Covered up here, you've got some extra cushions. Little screen there for something. All of your paperwork sits up here. We've left you with quite a few nice bits and pieces. You've got a little scissor jack there. And I'm not sure what else, to be honest with you. But you've got a little hookup cable here. I'm not sure if someone's already mentioned it to you from here yet or not, but we don't test any of this equipment that gets left behind. You know, it would take us forever if we went through and tested every single, you know, previous thing that customers leave. I've got no doubt that it works, but if it doesn't, you know, we haven't tested it. So I just thought I'd mention that. But yeah, you know, feel free to use it. Right, lock that overhead cupboard up there so it doesn't come open when you're driving. Let's just make sure there's nothing up here to show you. Like I've already shown you that your cable for the solar panel comes through up there. Right, the main skylight up here, I will get through to other bits and pieces in a minute, but the main skylight up here, push in on this button here, and then the little lever comes down. You then basically just pull back and follow this line. If you want to open it all the way up, this is, follow this line all the way back to here. Same on both sides, all the way back. I'll do that now, look. Make sure it's all the way back. Otherwise, sometimes they can sort of slip back over again. But that's your skylight all the way open. If you wanted it quite, you know, if it was a little bit windy outside and you wanted to keep it a little bit lower, push it back and just fit it into one of these two little slots. So you've got the same on both sides, but if I show you, go up into that one, copy it on that side, and then that way, this is all, it's actually pretty tough, you know, it's not going anywhere. If you wanted it a little bit further back, you can do it again, into the next one, that's a little bit lower, and then pop it away, all the way up, back over this bit, okay? You've got a fly screen that goes across there, obviously for if you've got it open, and a main blackout blind for at night is there. The rest of the windows work in a very, very similar way. You've got a blind that comes down from the top and actually hooks over this little bottom part. And if you squeeze on these two and lift up, you've also got a blackout blind, which you can set at any point. So that'll go all the way up and then clip in. You then have to release this, squeeze in, and it'll go down. So basically every window in the vehicle is the same. They all work on tension. So if you clip it up like that, release it, let it go, you can feel it as soon as you start squeezing this in, it's trying to pull down. All right, I'm not pulling it down now, it's just doing it on its own. So it's got really good tension. Same with the blind. That, you know, I'm not going to let go of it because it makes a bit of a noise, but I'm not lifting this up now, it's just doing it itself because it works on tension in the corners. So that's all working really well. Cupboards over the top, really, really deep, big cupboards. You know, really, really loads of storage in here, to be honest with you, loads. The blind, I've just remembered, this little cover up here, I was just trying to remember what that was for. So, it's a proper Fiamma thing. I didn't realise that it was a proper Fiamma thing. But you've got these two runners up here. So if you want to black this out, you can pop these two up. If I can do it, there you go. Like that. So that's like a fly screen, like a blackout blind for your skylight at the back here. So actually, I'll leave that there just so that you can remember what that's for, because I forgot. So that's that up there. Sink, I've shown you that. You've got a little drainer there as well with another, oh, I thought some of the German vehicles have got an extra plug hole up here, which is absolutely for no reason at all. And I thought that was one of those, but it's just a holder for this. Right, so obviously that goes in there. Okay. So your 240 volt sockets, so these 3-pin ones that you can, you know, like household ones, like I said to you before, they will only work when your hookup's plugged in, all right? The 12 volt ones, these little circle ones, will work anytime. because they run directly through from your leisure battery. You've also got your cooker over here on the right, so pull this over to the side like that to make sure that you don't get anything sort of splashing up or anything nasty happening over there on the other side. And a grill underneath. It's not an oven, it is only a grill, but obviously you wouldn't be able to fit a full-size oven in there. Reason being, by the way, this is your gas locker just here, so that's why you can't have a cupboard in here. So the 4-burner and the grill, nice and simple. You've basically got an ignition which works off this button just here. That button does all 4 burners and the grill all at the same time. I don't feel like I need to show you how they actually work, because it's just like any household cooker, to be fair. But they've got a little diagram on the top of each of those showing you exactly which one does which. So that's all there. You've then also got your fridge down here below the sink. Cutlery drawer there on the right, and access at the bottom of the sink if you ever should need to. There's no, I can't think of any reason why you guys would actually need to get there, but if at some point something was to go wrong, if your pump was to, if your tap was to start leaking or something like that, it's so handy having this, obviously for us really. But the fact that you can get your hands in there and get to the nut underneath for the tap, it makes it so much easier to work on. But yeah, so that's what that's for, if you're ever wondering. The fridge itself is nice and simple. You've got a freezer box up here on the top right hand side, which is why you've got your ice tray in there, obviously. Bits and pieces in the door that you can put whatever you want into. The fins at the back there are the bits that actually get cold, by the way, so well, the rest of it does as well, kind of, but that's the main part. You've got a little lock. If you look on here, I'll quickly explain this to you. When you push this little lock down, see the button just comes down underneath, and you push the little green bit to pop it back up. But the reason there's 2 little holes here is that you can have it on what they call vent. So if I put it there, you see there, it's on the first rung. So basically, if you're not going to use the van for a long time, instead of keeping it shut fully like that, it's so important to keep it on that little vent one, because the smell, if you left this van for a year and you kept the fridge shut, I cannot explain to you how bad the smell is that comes out of them. I don't personally know why that is, but if you leave it on the vent, it just doesn't happen. I suppose the moisture that doesn't build up inside of it and things. But yeah, it's unbelievable the smell that comes out of these things. So leave it on the vent if you're not using it. Really important. Otherwise, you can lock it all the way over like that. So actually, I will leave it on vent for now. So if you want to light the fridge up via the gas and cool it down via gas, this button on the very right hand side is the your ignition. You can leave this one here, pretty much just leave it exactly how it is. So gas on, ignition switch on, and then just push in and round to the left on this one. You'll hear it light up, and then the ignition switch will stop. Just like that. All right, so you probably didn't hear it on the video actually, but I heard it light up, and then the ignition stops. So the moment that you your ignition stops there, let go of that now. If your ignition switch is on like that and it's not clicking, basically it means that your burner's lit. There's a couple of other ways of knowing that it's lit up. You can have a look down here into your little peephole you got down there. You can just about see there on the video, it's got a little blue flame at the bottom. Obviously the flame should be blue, that's the right colour for it. It means it's not a dirty flame at all. Or after about 5 or 10 minutes or so of it being lit up, you can go outside and put your hand over that top right hand side of the top vent, and then you feel warm air coming out through that. Right, I'll leave that lit up for a minute. If you had a hookup cable plugged into the vehicle, press the green button on, and that'll basically just start cooling the fridge down via the electric element. The electric element, green switch, and the gas are the only 2 ways that will get this fridge cold on their own. You can do them both at the same time if you've got access to gas and a hookup cable plugged in. If you're in a bit of a rush to cool it down. The reason that is, by the way, the 240 volt element is quite a lot bigger than the 12 volt one, which I'll get onto in a minute. And that's why it can get the fridge cold on its own. The gas as well, the gas is just a really good way of getting the fridge cold. So if you leave this lit up on gas for 2 or 3 hours, this fridge will be nice and cold. Same for if you left it on the hookup, should be nice and cold after a couple of hours as well. If you're going to go on holiday, let me just sort of give you an example. If you're going to go on holiday tomorrow morning, I would suggest you either wake up really early and turn it on a good few hours before you leave, or switch it either onto the mains or the gas the night before you go away. That way, in the morning when you go to leave, the fridge will be nice and cold and everything inside will be cold as well. And then what you need to do is turn these bits off, whichever one you've got it lit up on, turn it off, and then switch over to your 12-volt switch, which is your red one. The red one, basically, when you start the engine up, you've got something called a split charge relay. So your engine battery gets charged up via your alternator, and then your split charger sends the power directly from there to your leisure battery as well. As part of that split charger, you've got this 12-volt DC power for your fridge. So as soon as you start the engine up, you can turn this little red switch on there. It should light up, and then basically the fridge will just start cooling down, or keeping cool via the 12-volt via your battery. So that's when your engine's running only, and it'll also only hold a temperature. It won't get the fridge cold on its own. So if you fill this up with warm stuff and don't pre-cool it before you start driving and using the 12-volt switch, when you get to where you're going, everything inside the fridge will be the same temperature. That's not this fridge only, it's all fridges in the motorhomes. So make sure that you pre-cool the fridge before you start driving and use your 12-volt switch. Once you get to where you're going and you finish driving, obviously you can just switch it back over to either the gas or the 240. All right, so I'll leave that on the vent. Bathroom is probably the last bit, really. I'm trying to be quite thorough with everything, by the way. It's why it's taking a little while. I just wanted you to see everything properly. As long as you've got your pump switched on, obviously, you can then use your bathroom sink. I'll point out to you as well, you might have noticed there's no drain inside this. Reason being, there's a drain just down here and a drain just down here. It's not something that we've done. It's just the way that these sinks work. All the old New Ventures and the newer New Ventures all have the exact same sinks. So let me show you. Pull the tap, pump will kick in. Try it on the hot for a second as well. Let's just see if you've got hot water as well, by the way. There you go. There's warm water coming through there already. So what's that been, like 15 minutes? That's warm enough for a shower, easily. There you go. So that's a really, really good boiler you've got in this. It would normally take at least half an hour to even start getting lukewarm, but that's actually quite warm already. Right, so then all you have to do is just carefully, slowly pour it down the back. Don't go nuts on it and just throw it back, because then obviously it will just splash everywhere. Pour it down the back, keep going, and then just basically push this away, all the way up. Drains are in, behind this part here. Just go straight down into your wastewater tank. Shower as well, obviously I'm not going to show you that because I get soaking wet, but it all works from this little lever just down there. And the toilet is the last thing, really. You've got a flap down here, so your little grey lever. So open is that position over to the right, and then closed is back to the left. Pump, push that button there, and that pumps your fluid around. When you eventually get round to refilling this, when you run out of this fluid, it's better. I mean, they do it in different colours, but you should really have the pink fluid in here. It's not a problem. It's just that the proper fluid is the pink stuff. So pump that around there, straight into the cassette if you want to. Give it a little clean through. And then it's really important to close this back over for a couple of reasons. If you don't close it back over, obviously you're going to get all the smell that's inside of your toilet cassette coming straight back up into the vehicle, which obviously you don't want. But also, if you leave that flap open, you will not be able to take the cassette out from outside. It locks it in place. So just make sure that you do that. Make sure that you close it back over when you're finished. Right, so I'll turn your boiler off now, just by turning it back round one. I'll put all these seats and bits and pieces back together. And other than that, when you finish up with the van, switch all your lights off, pump off, lights off. And by the way, just pointing something else out, if you did want to just leave all of your lights switched on, whichever ones you want to leave them on, you can literally just turn them on and off from this button here. So at the moment, I've got all 4 of these bulbs on. If I know that I'm going to want them back on again when I turn my lights on, I'll do this. Look, I've left them on, so there you go. So they all come on, rather than having to go around every time and turn them all on. Leave them on, just isolate them from here. And once you've done that, top switch turns all your power off. Anything 12 volt is then isolated. And that's it, you're good to go. So I think I've shown you everything I can. If there's anything else you want covering over again, just let us know. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing you soon to collect your van. Thanks very much.